Good afternoon. It is Friday, February 19th, 2021. This is a virtual regular meeting of the Commissioners of Rehoboth Beach. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 2:00 p.m. We'll start off with a roll call of commissioners. Commissioner Czernowski.
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
I'm here.
Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Dick Byrne.
Here.
Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Here.
And I'm Mayor Stan Mills. We have a full complement and are able to formally conduct business today. Welcome to all. Welcome to our watchers that are merely watching. Also want to welcome those that have signed up as participants to speak. And those persons are Carol Everhart with the Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce, Walter Brittingham, Dan Slagle and Greer Manival of Rehoboth Beach Main Street, Rick Perry, Joel Fraden, Frank Cooper, and Gary Glass. Thank you for registering and willingness to participate. I'll be calling on you at various times during the meeting to get your input and feedback. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to the next item. I'd like to identify support documents. Those documents that support our agenda items are embedded into the agenda today, so you see exactly what we see. Again, access the agenda online, cityrehoboth.com, go to the legislative portal, and seek out the meeting information. With that, I want to identify that no correspondence is noted to be identified today. And with that, we will go to the next item, which is approval of minutes. In front of us, we have, despite what's said there, we've got just 4 sets of minutes in front of us to approve today. Those 4 sets of minutes are December 7th, 2018, December 10th, 2018, January 15th, 2021, and February 12th, 2021. With that, are there any corrections to either of those 4 sets of minutes? Hearing none, what I would do is entertain 2 motions. One is to approve the minutes of December 7th, 2018, and approve the minutes December 10th, 2018 as presented to us. The only persons that can move, second, and vote for those minutes are myself, Commissioner Byrne, and Commissioner Caluzzi, because they were the only ones in attendance back at the time these meetings were held. With that, I'll entertain a meeting to approve the minutes of those 2 sets of minutes.
I move approval, Mayor, of the minutes for December 7th, 2018 and December 10th, 2018.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Byrne and a second by Commissioner Caluzzi to adopt those minutes as noted and presented today. Of the 3 of us voting, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, and those 2 sets of minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Excuse me. With that, we'll go to the other set of minutes, which all the commissioners present today have the opportunity to motion and second and approve, vote on. They are the meeting minutes of January 15th, 2021, and the minutes of February 12th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Who moved?
Patrick.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Gossett and a second by Commissioner Byrne to approve the minutes of January 15, 2021 and the special meeting minutes of February 12, 2021. With that, all those in favor of the approval of the 2 sets of minutes as noted, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. And those opposed, nay. And those minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to move on to the city manager's report. Sharon Lynn? You're muted.
Sorry about that. We have two street aid requests for payment for streetlights. One January 21 to Delmarva Power in the amount of $9,697.16. And one for February 18th to Delmarva Power for streetlights in the amount of $18,435.11.
So I would entertain a motion and a second to authorize the city manager to pay the two amounts as noted to Delmarva Power.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the two expenditures to Delmarva Power. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. And the expenditures are approved unanimously. Thank you very much. City manager, also embedded in the agenda is a support document, fiscal year 2021 capital budget status update for February 2021. Do you want to say anything about it, or?
Can I just give a brief report first and then we can go to that?
Absolutely.
Is that okay? Okay. So we did send out letters last week to businesses regarding applications for outdoor dining permits and also to retail establishments. We've received approximately half a dozen, maybe 6 to 10 permits at this time, and they're being evaluated by staff. So we hope to get them back in a timely fashion. The Baltimore Avenue, Wilmington Avenue Streetscape project will have a kickoff meeting for the project next Friday, February 26th. And those participating will be the project team, DelDOT, and the consultant. At this time, the task force will not be included. Oyster House Village is a new development in Sussex County requesting to tie into the city's water system. And the Director of Public Works is preparing a draft agreement with the city attorney that will be brought to the board at a future meeting. Parks and Shade Tree Commission meeting scheduled for Monday, February 22nd has been canceled due to awaiting the timely replacement of a chairperson, and the next meeting is scheduled for Monday, March 22nd at 10 a.m. And we have updated the website to alert the community on opportunities for vaccines and tests, sharing additional information through our eBlast newsletter regarding the pandemic. So that's been updated very recently. That's what I have there. Mayor, I'm happy to go into the CIP if there are any questions. I know we did touch on that this morning.
Again, there's a support document embedded in the agenda for fiscal year 2021 capital budget status. Does any commissioners have questions? Commissioner LeGree?
I can't make the numbers come out on the wastewater amounts spent, deferred, and year to date on some of these. And I'm sure it's just because I can't make the numbers come out. For sewer line rehab, we put 460. It says spent 360, and then it says deferred 420, and then in the far right line it says year to date, and there's nothing in there. Help me out here. Am I looking at the document?
Commissioner, this is Evan. I appreciate you pointing that out. So the 460 is originally what was budgeted.
What line number, you know?
Sorry, I'm on line 62.
Yeah.
So you're correct. So 460 was the budgeted amount. The spend column is just what the commissioners and the city manager and the staff have approved to move forward in terms of how much we're obligating towards the project. So you'll recall that that project was put back in, but at a reduced scope of $360,000. So that deferred column really just needs to reflect $100,000, not the $420,000. So that is a mistake, and so far the year to date, pulling the actual numbers, I did not see any expenditures so far for that project.
Now, are we going to spend those, or we have another month left in FY? Are we going to carry those over? What's the plan?
Hi, Commissioner Kevin. I think we must have some miscategorized because we did sewer rehab on East Lake Drive. So that money obviously got tagged somewhere else to get that moved around. And then we've got a plan to upgrade the sewer line on St. Lawrence, which we're hoping to do in early March. So we expect to execute most of, if not all of that new authorization of 320, I think it was.
360. Yeah, and you will see Commissioner line 64, I have East Lake Drive sewer extension. So that's so far the year-to-date expended, which just needs to be reclassified to that line. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult just classifying some of the charges to particular projects. So now I have a better understanding of that. So I'll appropriate those funds back into line 62.
Talk to me about the line 64 a little bit.
East Lake Drive.
Yeah, that extension.
The East Lake Drive sewer extension.
Sure. East Lake Drive is over just as you're coming across the bridge, and you can't turn left, but it's right there. Where the sewer line had only gone up a portion of the street. And
Yeah.
It had two homes back to back, and they were all fed off of Rodney Street.
Yep.
So we ran an extension to get up to the point where we don't have two homes in that, back to back in that block. And now each of the homes on East Lake Drive, that section of East Lake Drive, are fed off of East Lake, or feed to East Lake Drive, both water and sewer, and there's not a kind of an authorized easement that would run between the property owner on Rodney Street for those tie-ins.
All right, is Sussex County going to come and meet us on East Lake Drive with an extension, or what's happening in that?
All right, so that's a future project. Do we want to talk about it?
Or do you want to defer it until the wastewater?
No, he's talking about a water main connection with the county on the other section of East Lake Drive, down on the very east tip of Silver Lake.
You want that on the feet?
No, I'm good.
Okay, yeah.
I don't want to violate something.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yes, we met with the county. They're very interested in upsizing that water main that runs along the isthmus, whatever it is there, with all the homes between the ocean and Silver Lake. So they've got a drawing now. We're analyzing it, see if it's everything we want it to do. But it would connect. They have an existing 4-inch, I think. But anyway, we want to upsize that. So we have good fire protection on all those homes, both the several that we service as well as the majority that they service. And then it would connect to our 8-inch line there in the vicinity of Prospect.
Okay. And
Prospect. I think it's Penn. I think we're planning to connect at Penn.
oh, at what?
Yeah.
At Penn Street.
And so this East Lake Drive sewer extension is just a placeholder.
No. So East Lake Drive sewer extension is the sewer line over on East Lake Drive. Like I said, as you come across the bridge, East Lake Bridge, if you could turn left, it would be that little section there.
Oh, I got you. I was in the other East Lake Drive and I couldn't figure it out. Yeah, I know. I remember when you did that. Okay, that's great. And I'm assuming the 188,000 is just because we needed to fund that till it got done on line 59.
That's CCTV.
It's that CCTV.
So,
yeah.
Correct. So the CCTV work we did basically last spring, as COVID was hitting, we said we weren't allowed to, let's keep them in the streets. We did this current year's allocation while they were there in the spring. So, part of that, we got, 50K, I think, Evan,
Mhm.
from a, grant for the stormwater. So the 180, actually includes some sanitary and some storm. So
Okay.
we really need to look at the aggregate of, stormwater CCTV, the sanitary CCTV, and then that, extra category that Bert keeps for grant revenues coming in. But they should all, the total should be accurate.
Yeah,
It
and,
may not be in the appropriate, category.
yeah, the other thing I'll add, Commissioner, is we reflect, 187,000, yet the invoices that we receive are for a combination, as Kevin's indicated, as the sanitary as well as the storm. Line 18 reflects the storm sewer assessment and repairs, so it would it's just a matter of reclassifying some of those invoices that we received. I think we've received some invoices that have been for some stormwater work that's been charged to the wastewater capital outlay. So some of those just need to be reclassified, but, still both work as CCTV
That's fine,
related.
Evan. I'm sure that all adds up. My next question is, are you done with the pump station rehab? And I can't remember which pump station that was, but, on line, 57.
Yeah, that's the state road pump station, or our main pump station, leading to the plant. That work is ongoing, but has not been completed yet.
Oh, okay.
We do
So
expect to be able to execute that full amount, before the end of this FY.
I hear you. I hear you. Okay, until we start talking about stormwater, I'm fine.
Thank you, Commissioner. Evan, explain under project equipment, some of these are highlighted in peach color. What does that reference?
Correct. So the items in the peach color, if you will, are items that were not budgeted for. For example, in the streets department, lines 34 through 39, that includes Merge's construction administration for the wayfinding signage project, COVID signs for the boardwalk that we had to purchase this summer, the wayfinding signage project, which you'll recall the commissioners approved a budget adjustment for that. New trash can lids to replace some of the existing, and then the state road pedestrian study. So that's just an example. I also indicated the East Lake Drive sewer extension, line 64, just has to be reclassified under line 62. And then under the administration department for the capital outlays, Munis executime implementation was charged to capital outlays.
Very good. Thank you, Evan. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, thanks. Actually, let me refer to something that Evan just mentioned, the peach color, the merge signage that we voted specially to amend the budget. I remember that well. We actually amended the previous year's budget. And the reason I know that is because I abstained because I hadn't been part of the previous year's budget. And yet here it is in this. Maybe at this point, it doesn't really matter which year it falls into. It's just curious to me that it ended up here when it was supposed to be attributed to the previous year. But, you know, I guess it's neither here nor there, right, Evan?
Well, the project wasn't completed or near completion in the previous fiscal year, so it had to be put into this fiscal year's budget.
Okay. I actually have one specific question and then an overarching one. The specific one is on line 15, the Lake Avenue Phase 2. And we've always known our contribution was 400,000, but spent year to date is only 154. Is that just a timing issue? Is it behind, or is that just a matter of the bills haven't been paid yet, or what?
So that would be actually the city's 20% match for the project. So far, we've paid approximately $780,000 towards the project. So for the purpose of the capital budget status update, I've just reflected for two lines in particular. The Lake Avenue Phase 2 part, that's just the city's 20% match. And then also for the Grove Park Canal Access Dock, the city's capital outlay match of the 182,439 so far. But both of those projects, the entire project amount has been charged to the capital outlays, which may also explain the difference in numbers between the capital, and I think you brought this up earlier this morning, Commissioner, the difference in the total capital outlays that were provided in this morning's summary of expenditures and this capital status update. That would explain the difference in the numbers. The numbers from earlier this morning include the entire project amount and the entire cost associated with those projects. For the status update, I've just included the cost to the city for those projects.
Okay, well, then thank you for anticipating my next question, because you did, because I was looking at the actual, which was shown on the budget this morning was 4 million, but the year-to-date here is shown as 2.5. So that's the difference?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. So
Okay.
we've actually been receiving reimbursements from DelDOT of 80%. We've received 4 invoices, or we've generated 4 invoices to DelDOT for the 80% match for the Lake Avenue project. And then obviously the expense of the Grove Park project at roughly $1 million would make up that difference in the numbers there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, thank you. And I think you answered the question about the highlighted lines 34 through 39. But do we capture all expenditures that are not forecast in the budget, or just over a certain amount? Do we have any guidelines or policy on that?
No guidelines or policy, Commissioner. Just something that I wanted to point out whenever doing the capital budget status update. So occasionally we'll have things like this, and I just think it's important to call those numbers out so that the numbers just reflect everything that's pretty much hit the capital budget for the city.
No, I appreciate that, but would it be advantageous for going forward that we have some type of guidelines that if it's an expenditure over X number of dollars, that it is reflected? I mean, the time to the COVID signs for the boardwalk for 1911, I mean, that's important, but just going forward, so we have some consistency in that type of reporting, if we could set a policy or some thoughts on that.
Well, I would say, Commissioner, to comment on that the finance director ties everything in his notes. Excuse me, in his notes in the annual review for the auditors. So I think it's not a bad idea to set a policy, but all of those are documented on an annual basis in the review with the auditors. So unless you want to, have a policy, that's certainly worthwhile.
Well, personally, I think this is very helpful to see that either on a monthly or quarterly basis, as opposed to at the end of the year when you really can't react to it in some regards, other than we spent it. So I leave it up to you to best kind of figure out how to go forward on it or something of that nature, or discuss with the mayor and the finance director further. But I personally, I think it is helpful to see spending that has been outside the budget in a larger regard. I would, a cutoff of 50,000 or 75,000 or something of that nature is what I would see. But thank you.
Okay, and that's why we put the notes in there. It helps us as well. I did want to comment, Mayor, on just the CARES Act reimbursement. You'll recall that we received just a little over $20,000 regarding the CARES Act from the reimbursement, and with the assistance from the city solicitor, who wrote a letter to the Delaware Office of Management and Budget in capturing some of the funds for the barricades and for the ramp specifically. We did receive at the end of January an additional $49,000 for them, so that was certainly helpful within the budget itself.
Thank you,
So
Sharon.
total reimbursement is approximately $72,000.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner LeGree?
Yeah, and I apologize for not doing my homework. When do we plan to catch up on the water meter installation in North Shores? I know we had that originally at 500,000, And we were, so far, I see we've only spent 100,000 on it. And I just was looking for it in the December report, and I can't see it. What are our plans?
So the contractor's on site and working, so he's only invoiced us one month's, or one invoice to date, probably 60 to 70,000. So, you know, he should be able to finish up in the next month and get the total of that. I think we had 330, I believe, was the revised authorization to award. He'll finish that this year.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Calusi? You're muted.
Yes, thank you. So I'm not sure if the city manager or Evan's the right person to answer the question, but we talked about the idea of, I guess, at every regular meeting as a part of, I don't know if it's a part of your report, Sharon, but an update on which grants we've applied for, so we know what we're looking at.
You're muted, Sharon.
Sorry, you're looking for a total compilation of this year's grants?
Well, I mean, just an update that we're, you know, looking at something for example, crosswalks or whatever grants we're going after with DENREC or DELDOT.
Okay.
Just so, you know, I think would be of interest to us to know if that money comes in, and certainly which.
Certainly.
Yeah.
We can provide you with just a list of all grants applied for and received and those still pending.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there's no more questions by the commissioners, I'd like to go to the members of the public real quick. Again, this would be specific comments specific to the CIP budget in front of us. Carol Everhart, are you there?
No comment, Mayor.
Thank you. Walter Brittingham?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Dan Greer? Not on. Richard Perry?
No comment, Mayor.
Thank you. And Joel Fraden?
Yes, sir.
Frank Cooper?
No comment, thank you.
Is that a yes or a no?
No comment.
No comment. Gary Glass? Very good, thank you very much. We'll move on if there's no further questions on the budget. And City Manager, are you done with everything?
Yes, Mayor. I've been done, and I think that we have one more meeting, and hopefully we'll get you the information that you're requesting, and then we'll provide additional reports for those outstanding items that we discussed this morning.
Very good. Thank you very much, Sharon. With that, we'll move to City Solicitor's report. Glenn, do you have anything?
I don't have anything new for the Commissioner.
Nothing new. Departmental reports are embedded in the agenda. They're not giving them orally. Board and Commission reports, none have been identified. We didn't receive anything from the Planning Commission this time. I'm sure they'll catch up next time. Committee reports, we had only one committee asked to be on the agenda today, and that's a report of the Boardwalk and Beach Committee with possible notes on dark skies pursuit and on the potential use of dog waste dispensers on the boardwalk. Commissioner Jay Legree.
Thanks, Mayor. Most of what is pertinent is in my report. We did decide that we weren't going forward with the dog waste bag dispensers on the boardwalk because the logistics would be tough. You have to take them up in the summertime and put them down in the wintertime. And there just wasn't a consensus to go forward on that. So for now, that's where we are. And the recommendations on dark sky, I think the overriding thought from our committee was that this is a huge project, and we really want to get involved with the environment committee. We'd like to have a because it's impossible not to go citywide once you start this. And we can do our part on the boardwalk. We'd like to have some professional expertise when we start doing an inventory of our lighting assets. And we'd like to have some professional help when we start to decide, as Commissioner Gossett put it, when we start working on that 17th street lamp. So that's where we are right now. And we are kind of wondering if it wouldn't be easier to get a dark sky task force going forward. But overall, we think that the summer is the time to really do the correct inventory of the lights on the boardwalk and probably for the city at large. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Byrne?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. A couple of responses to Commissioner Legree's report. The discussion that your committee had regarding dog waste containers on the boardwalk will be informative to the Animal Issues Committee that's meeting again in a couple of weeks, because it's also come to the Animal Issues Committee. And when they met several weeks ago, they weren't sure what direction to go with it, and had some of these same questions and thoughts. So I will bring your conclusions to that committee, and hopefully we'll come out in about the same place.
Thanks, Dick.
Sure. Secondly, regarding dark skies, your recommendations are very similar to the motion that the Environment Committee passed some weeks ago. And, you know, the more I thought about this and had some individual conversations with members of the Environment Committee, is that the whole concept of the dark skies touches on so many aspects of life, not just beach and boardwalk, not just the Environment Committee, but, you know, you could probably look at most of our committees and commissions and say it has something to do with it. It really has to become a comprehensive, broad approach. I mean, we all have our hands in it in some way, and it impacts all of us, businesses, residents, et cetera, et cetera. So I also support this idea of thinking seriously about a task force that's kind of broadly across our various committees to take a look at these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comment on Jay's report? Nope. If not, we'll again go to the public real quick. Carol Everhart?
No comment, Mayor.
Thank you. Walter?
No, thank you.
Dan or Greer? Still not on. Rick Perry?
No comment.
Joel Fraden?
No comment.
Frank Cooper?
For addressing this issue, and that's all. Thank you.
Gary Glass? Nope. All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate your quick.
Sorry, Mary, just one quick question or comment on this.
Gossett. Yes, sir.
With regards to the dark sky, there are two issues before us right now that I think could or should also reflect on some dark sky thought. That one being the LED retrofit of the Rehoboth Avenue streetlights, if that is going to go forward, and also the streetscape project on Wilmington and Baltimore, that dark skies at least be put in the list of things to consider in going forward. Those are two projects that have been either funded or are in the process of being funded or scheduling, but I think both have an impact or could have an impact on a future dark skies initiative for the city.
Very good. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the next item of business, which is liaison reports. We have four of them, as you know. We'll start off with the liaison, and they can choose to redirect it to a member of the agency. Commissioner Gay, you're with the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, and I believe Carol is with us today.
I am. Thank you, Commissioner Gay. Should I just give my report now, Stan? We're ready?
Please.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll just give you an update. I don't know if everyone saw that the new regulation, the governor has expanded the numbers for the gatherings from 10 to 25 indoors with a potential of up to 150 with a plan. So that went out on an alert a few hours ago. The visitor guides for 2021 are actually were delivered today, so we have 120,000 of those ready to go out, and a list of over 3,000 waiting to receive them. So they'll start being mailed out immediately. Dining guides are in process for 2021. We did delay the printing to, instead of having them ready by the end of May, we'll have them ready before July 4th, so by the end of June. The events for 2021 have been set, and they are posted on our website and have been publicized. At business request, we are coordinating an outdoor job fair. It will most likely be at the Jungle Gyms facility, the big parking lot there, or another big parking lot. Realtor bags are underway, as well as the product that goes into them. I did want to mention that we had worked with the city. Cheryl her family had asked that we consider naming our Volunteer of the Year award after Cheryl, and we have done that. The press has gone out on that. And lastly, unless there's questions, the J1 program with the foreign students, the local program, which was coordinated originally under the chamber, grew, and we just assisted with marketing and attending some meetings with that group. They are not going to hold that program locally this year. So that was the program that provided meals and social time for the students. And we're waiting to see what is going to be done with the bike portion of that. We usually work with DelDOT on that, and we are on a standby situation with that. And unless you have questions, that's about what we've done since the last meeting.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions for Carol? If not, thank you, Carol. We'll move on to Commissioner Jay Legree, liaison to the Historical Society.
Hi, if everybody would get on the Rehoboth Beach Museum website, they could see that we're having a fellow, Michael Sprouse, and he, in 1940, Sadie Moore Cook wrote a book of poems about Rehoboth Beach, and he reads those, and it's great. And also, Nancy's doing an oral history of Mrs. Wayne Paskins, and that's also great. I would recommend that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, we'll move on to Commissioner Srnowski, liaison to Main Street.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple brief updates. Main Street is holding some fundraisers and have been submitting grant applications to help pay for the barriers for outdoor dining and shopping. So far, so good. They've gotten a lot of positive response. They also have received another 110 gallons of hand sanitizer for the city businesses and city offices to use. With their new newsletter that went out just last week, they've also assisted in getting the word out about the new policies for outdoor dining and the application process. So just a couple things there.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? I do have some questions, I guess, about Main Street's fundraiser, but I'll pose those privately at some point. Our next liaison is Commissioner Byrne, liaison to the Cape Henlopen Senior Center.
Thanks, Mayor. Two quick items. One is that the Cape Henlopen Senior Center is partnering with AARP to do tax preparation for seniors that need assistance. And all a senior needs to do is to call the senior center and request the assistance, and it will be arranged through trained volunteers with AARP. And secondly, just a big thank you to Sharon and her team for the support they gave to this senior center recently when a water main broke out in front of the building. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions, Commissioner Gossett?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just back up for a second to Main Street. Just curious, what's the distribution of the newsletter for Main Street? Is that electronic? Is it paper? And kind of who does it go to?
It is electronic, and it is everyone that has signed up or is in their database. Mostly, once it restarted a couple years ago, it's mostly been, it started off with all of the business contact information that we had on file. And as individuals have signed up or subscribed their email addresses, it'd be going out to them and anyone that's donated over the past couple of years.
That's great. I was just wondering if the chamber, as a courtesy, extends their newsletters to the commissioners. I wonder if Main Street could do the same thing with their newsletters to all the commissioners, so that we could be aware of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I will. If that has not happened, I will make sure it does happen.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. With that, we'll go to first business of item of old business, report on status of Wilmington Baltimore Avenue Streetscape project and formation of task force. As you heard earlier during the city manager's report, she mentioned that the kickoff meeting is the end of next week for the private team. This is a non-public meeting. It's just the project team with the city staff and myself on there, as well as I think Del Dot and Rossi team that's the consultant. The application did not get online Tuesday, but it is online now. I wanted to again thank Evan Miller for his efforts in the application. If you go to online cityrehoboth.com, on the right side center of the page, you'll click on the legislative portal, then click under meetings on the left side, and you'll see a new box created for the Wilmington Baltimore Avenue Streetscape Task Force, which has links to it to the Streetscape Task Force roles and responsibilities, as well as the application. There's no set date for the first meeting yet, and there's no set date for when we will have vetted the applicants and are making nominations. So I do expect to reach out to the chamber in Main Street probably as early as Monday to help get the word out that we are soliciting for members. We'll also do a press release and get this thing rolling. Any questions? If not, we'll move to the next item of business, which is report on status of wastewater treatment plant upgrades. We'll turn that over to Kevin Williams, Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess a couple of the commissioners had asked for kind of an update on the projects that are going on down there, as well as how we plan to fund each of those items. So we'll get into that. I just want to take a little bit step back in history a little bit. This was the phasing, it was a 4-phased plus the Outfall project that was developed probably 4 or 5 years ago when we started down the construction path for bringing our wastewater treatment plant into compliance and up to date with some of these enhancements that we're doing right now. Like I said, it changed slightly in what was in each phase, but we'll talk about that as we go through it. Obviously, the first one was completed back in 2018, was the big one to get the effluent out of the canal and move it to an ocean outfall, and that involved 3 separate projects: the effluent pump station, which is the pumps at the plant to get it to the ocean, the force main, which was the pipe that gets it to the ocean, and then the outfall itself is how it is spread and distributed it into the ocean. I'm sure many of you remember the Outfall construction and how that went along. There was just a shot of the Outfall structure itself as they're lowering that into the water. Many of you remember the gore of construction as it went down the city streets and caused a lot of issues with open trenching and all the things that go along with an active construction site. And then there in the center is a couple of the pumps, 2 of the 4 pumps down at the effluent pump station. But those projects were completed in 2018. Funding for those were provided out of the SRF Outfall loan, which was about a $40.5-ish million loan that we got. I think at the time we took the loan, it was a 25-year payback period with a 2% annual percentage rate. We actually have started with the SRF loans. You don't really make principal payments until you close out the loan. So we just officially closed that loan out earlier last year, and we actually made our first principal payment in September of this past year. And those principal and interest payments amount to about $1.1 million twice a year. So we pay that in September, and we will pay it again next month in March for the second payment for this FY. And as we've mentioned before, on those loans, the SRF loans, it's not a rolling period of time, loan period. When we, signed up for the loan some years ago, it was a 25-year loan, and that maturity date does not change. So the maturity date is 2041, which I guess encourages us to get, as you get close to closing out the loan, the sooner you get closing out, then the sooner you get to start making those payments against that loan, which obviously makes it a smaller payment each time. The longer you hold that loan open, then those annual payments grow significantly over that period of time. Kind of concurrently with the ocean outfall projects, we undertook phase 1 of the capital improvement plan upgrades. And that was basically new filters and new clarifiers, which enabled us to produce an effluent that met the permit requirements to be discharged to the ocean. So there's a couple of shots from inside the filter building. Those filters, it's a huge upgrade over the previous filters, and then the clarifiers, which also help treat the effluent to a degree, which makes it available to be discharged to the ocean. So those were completed, like I said, back in 2018 as well. Those were about $2.6 million for that upgrade. And we paid for that out of the second of the 2 SRF loans. And I think that had a payback period of 20 years at 2% interest. And again, it's still open. We're using that now for phase 2 and for phase 2. And right now we would just make interest payments on the amount that we have drawn. So it's significantly lower than what our ultimate payback period is. But again, that maturity date does not change. It's 2038. And the longer we keep this SRF loan open, you delay the payments, but then those payments compress and they become more over a shorter period of time. The ongoing projects down there at the wastewater treatment plant now are rolled into phase 2, which if you'll recall, and I'll try to point some things out with my cursor, I hope you're able to see that. But in the yellowish color was our original phase 2 scope. And that was basically emergency type electrical upgrades that needed to be done in order to maintain operation at the plant. The electrical system down there was woefully inadequate, so urgently needed. So we called it, I think, urgent electrical repairs. And it also included some motor control centers out in the various buildings where the treatment actually happens. If you'll recall, 2 years ago, I came to you with a request to add some work at our primary treatment facility and our oxidation ditches, where we had some serious structural issues. And the board at that time was good enough to allow us flexibility to move some out of our later phases and into this phase so we could get it done in a more expeditious manner. And that's the highlighted areas in blue, and we'll talk a little bit about it here in a moment. And then last year, about this time, you'll recall we actually had a motor and mixer failed. And because of the emergency nature of that, we asked again for authorization to pull more money forward into phase 2 so that we could address the issue we were having, not only with that mixer, but because of that issue, we pulled the rest of the mixer replacements up into phase 2. I say all of it, but it really wasn't all of it because we still kept some equipment manufacturer under phase 3, but we're actually installed under phase 2, and I'll talk about that again. So really, it's a combination of 3 kind of separate projects that we had talked about, I guess, starting years ago and more recently in the last couple of years. Just some shots of there. You can see some of the electrical duct bank work that was ongoing earlier this year down at the plant. There in the bottom, they're setting the electrical building, or one of the electrical buildings there adjacent to our sludge holding tanks, and then some of the electrical cabinets, the motor control centers, and the units inside that electrical control building. So that's the guts of, and you can see the green building there is the new backup generator for the as well. So a lot of good upgrades in the electrical part, and we'll talk about the money in a second. This is kind of what I came to you 2 years ago to try to get help, and moved up into it with the cracking we were seeing in the oxidation ditches, and then some of the influent piping that was causing us just real concern that it wasn't going to last for 3 or 4 more years until we could get to it under the, at that time, the appropriate phase where we had it planned. So again, the board was good enough to allow us to move that work forward. So there's kind of the breakout. The initial electrical project was $6 million. We asked for authorization to pull 3 more in for the headworks and the structural cracks to repair those. And then the mixer portion we had, if you'll recall, when we came to you for that authorization, we kept the manufacturer of the mixers. We wanted to use SRF funds to pay for that. So we were able to keep that and move that into 3A and use the SRF funds to do that. But we moved the installation of those underneath phase 2 so that we could have the contractor who's on the ground now go ahead and install those and not again have to wait until 2 more years down the road to get those mixers replaced. Overall, we think that project is scheduled to be complete now, September 2022. So another, another season, 2 seasons before we're through with that. But the mixers, the things we're really, really concerned with, are going to get done now prior to this coming season. And if you'll recall, the original project, the county we had an agreement with the county that we would split that cost 50-50, and they would give us a 2% loan over a 10-year period. When we came back for the additional work at the headworks and the mixers, they balked a little bit at the same 50-50 split. So we just reverted at their request back to, our agreement in place, which is the 58% city and 42% county. So that's the variable loan terms I talk about in the pay, how we pay for these projects. And I think that's again at 2% over the 10-year period. But the split then was 58-42, I think. And those payments will begin somewhere around the completion of phase 2, but the forecast right now would be fall of 2022, we'd start paying that back. And I think actually Bert would tell us that we don't write checks to the county, we just kind of reduce what they pay us for their share of the operation and maintenance of the plant. Phase 3 I mentioned a little bit earlier, so that's the oxidation ditch equipment. So that's the mixers, the mixer assemblies, the motors, and the structural elements that they all sit on that sit across the oxidation ditches. We actually have purchased and manufactured the new mixers. They're on site and being installed as we speak. There's a shot in the top left of the new mixer assembly that's going into the ditch that you see in the middle that has been dewatered this winter. So they're putting those mixer assemblies in, and there's just a motor that sits up on top of the structural scaffolding or structural support system that holds those motors and allows access to the top of the oxidation ditches. There's kind of a recap on 3 Alpha, about $1.7 million for the mixers just to build them. Philadelphia Mixer made them for us and delivered them. last month or early this month. They're being installed by Rocca under the Phase 2 contract, but the 3A manufacturer piece came out or is coming out of the SRF wastewater treatment plant loan, that $12 million loan. Again, we don't make any payments back on that loan until we close it, but it ends in March of 2038, and we'll talk about when we think we can close that loan under the next phase. Phase 3, which we've just recently completed the design for this. We wanted to have the design ready in case some wonderful politicians, got off their ass and signed an infrastructure bill and made infrastructure money available. So we're ready. All they got to do is pass the bill and we can spend it for them. But we saw it as an opportunity to hopefully get some federal money to move this forward if they ever pass an infrastructure bill. But be that as it may, right now it's 100% design sitting on the shelf. So now that we can schedule the advertisement and award of this contract such that this contractor would be able to arrive on site at the completion of the Phase 2 contractor, move in, do the Phase 3 work, and keep the thing moving without a big gap in time between contracts. So this work will involve the actual dewatering portion of what the original just Phase 3 used to be. It was treatment process treatment and dewatering. We broke those apart to get the mixers done ahead of time, and this will be the dewatering. So it's a belt filter press, it's a new primary digester, those kind of things. The latest estimate is somewhere in the 8 million piece. We have obviously pulled some of those things forward. That used to be in phases 3 and 4 into phase 2. So that this has come down off of the original estimate of I think 11 or 12 back 3 or 4 years ago. But our intent here, one of our intents here is that at the end of phase 3, the contract, we want to be able to close that second SRF loan so that we can begin making payments on that. So we scoped it such that we can use the remaining amount in the SRF loan, get the high priority work done that we need to get done, but leave as little for phase 4 to be paid for out of our rates, and get as much into that 12 million and get that thing closed out so we can start making the principal payments back on that. And you can see there we would make this, I think the 2-year project, you see 2022 to 2024-ish, then we would be able to close that loan out and then start making those payments sometime around the fall of 2024. And then phase 4 would be all the other things that are left, and that a lot more, not the emergency electrical work, but additional electrical work. We've got some work to do on the motor pool building down there, which we include into the treatment operation, because half of that building is the wastewater treatment plant. And just with all the settlement and things that have gone down on that site over the years, you can see it's actually just pulling as a vault out in the ground would settle. You can just see it's pulled it through the metal buildings, and it's just the additional work that we need to do to kind of bring that up to speed. Get those things reset, put them all on solid foundation, on piles if we need to, but just to try to mitigate some of the settlement that occurs down there routinely over the years since it was an old landfill. To include the road and access way in, if you've been down there in the last couple of years, you can just see it's kind of a mess getting in and out there. So some of the things that we didn't call, urgent operational needs, but things that need to be done, we've kind of rolled those into phase 4. Look to do that somewhere around 2025-ish. And then the intent behind this is we would have used the capacity in both of our SRF loans, and then this one would need to be paid for out of our rate structures. And if you recall, in the rate study days, we had a programmed significant rate increase again in 2024 to pay for a lot of this, because these two things, whatever that final number turns out to be, would have to be paid out of rates, and obviously we don't get a 10-year payback on those, so it'd have to be kind of paid back as the work is done. So caused us a significant bump in the rates at that point in time. And there's just a kind of a compilation of the various schedules. one of the things we were trying to avoid, you can't really have overlapping contractors on the ground at any given time, especially as we were trying to do phase 2, which the county is controlling, and they were able to fund it, without going to a loan, so they're not bound by Davis-Bacon or the prevailing wage rate determinations, whereas our projects under the SRF are. And after consultation with the Department of Labor, it's just better if we don't have kind of mixed contracts and mixed contractors using different labor rates, on the same ground at the same time. So our intent is to schedule them, front to back. So as soon as phase 2 contractors demobilize and phase 3 is mobilizing and getting on site with time ahead of time to get their materials on order and get the submittals approved. So then when 2 is out of the way, then phase 3 starts right away and they go after it full speed ahead. And then the same, looking forward to 4. We have started scoping 4, but we don't really have a good handle on what all we want to have into phase 4 yet, which is why the numbers still kind of hanging out there loose right now. And that's the latest and greatest from the wastewater treatment plant. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Commissioner LeGree? Here.
Kevin, where are we going to be in the fall of 22 with respect to being able to meet our permitted capacity at the treatment plant? And I think you know why I'm asking that question.
Well, I don't know that I do, but we are permitted for more than we're able to produce. So at that point in time, the county will have to decide if they want to come after, additional capacity that we would have. The whole idea of kind of spread, I don't know that they're going to dump any large amount on us at any specific time. The idea would be they'd start helping us maximize our capacity over the winter times when we're, pretty low on our volume.
You bet.
But I think at that point in time, they could. I think they will probably start to increase it about that time, but I think ultimately when we get the dewatering done is when they'll be able to. I think that my guess would be that is when they would look to maximize what they want to use from our capacity.
Now, the dewatering is primarily to fulfill our part of the biosolids contract. Is that correct?
That's correct. That gets us primarily out of the land application business because we can dewater it such then the county comes and picks it up and hauls it to inland bays and they process it from there. Ultimately, I think they take it to a landfill at that point. But it kind of reduces our need for land application, and we would probably just keep that permit open just as an emergency backup in case something were to go wrong. That's a decision we'll have to make, down the road a little bit, but probably 4 more years before we're able to dewater such that they would accept it at the dewatered level at inland bay.
So I guess my question is, even when we get to the fall of 22, we still may not be able to treat our permitted capacity?
No, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think we certainly meet our permitted, we're under our permitted capacity at this point in time.
Okay.
We have the peaks, obviously, where we get close, but over the course of the year, we're really not that close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
In 2022, what will that'll enable us, like I said, to get out of the land application for the most part.
Yep.
And then we cut back a lot on our delivery charges because now county's going to come and haul it away.
Yeah.
I think we're probably a little premature in trying to accurately predict when, the county wants to start, sending us more flow. That's kind of where you're going with it.
Say that again.
I just think we may be a little premature in trying to predict exactly when we think the county will want to increase their percentage of our capacity, if that's where you're going with the question.
Yeah. Okay. if they, they have the ability to do that today if they wanted. Is that correct? We just couldn't handle it.
That's correct. And they put the pipe under the canal, this past year. It's connected to kind of an influence, so they could get it to us if we were able to take it. As we can get to them now through that pipe if we have an emergency at our plant. So we can send it the other way if we have to.
But that puts a heck of a strain on Wolf Neck.
Sure.
I'm just trying to figure out the money end of it. Now, right now they're paying 42% of what these numbers that you give, 1.1 million and so on, is really 58% of that we have. And you said that we're just trading back and forth on I think the 3B or the 3A. We're trading operating expenses for loan repayment. And yeah, so we're doing 58% of everything that we see right now, with the exception of the 50-50 that we're trading. Is that correct?
I think that's correct, Commissioner.
Okay.
With the exception of the phase 2, which we've got on the 50-50.
Yeah. Okay, I think you're just doing a phenomenal job. I'm so impressed. With the oxidation ditch work is just dang near about done. Is that correct?
Well, I would say half, because we did most of the work in the one that we had dewatered for the maintenance this winter. The other half will get done, in the next shut, which would probably be next October or so, October, November.
Okay. And I think that's all the questions that I had jotted down. Oh, tell me what's going to happen at the scoping meeting with phase 4.
Well, I think they're scheduled to come down week after next, and we'll just kind of go through with Bill what he thinks are the primary projects we have left to do. Yeah, I don't know that I would have a good answer, and I can go back to that phase 4 kind of schedule.
Yeah.
And pull out some of the big ticket items that were in there. But it's all kind of mainly process kind of upgrades that aren't critical, but needed.
Yeah, because you took the dewatering building and you moved it ahead, and you got a pumping station for the plant drain, the big one. Diversion tank work's another big one, and you have electrical, and you have the site work. You've already talked about that. And
we were able to do some of the site work under this one, just because we couldn't do some of the construction we wanted because we couldn't get vehicles and equipment to the site. So we had to pull some of that ahead, which was good of the county to get that wrapped in.
Yeah.
But those large, you're gonna have the holding tanks, our overflow tanks, or our sludge holding tanks, and those things are in bad shape. I mean, if you go down and see them, they're all rusted out, that kind of thing. So a lot of the work, obviously, for those to give us some storage capacity on site if we were ever to need it, like we do over the winter time, those kind of things.
I was so hoping the phase 4 could be 50-50, but that just may not happen. Okay, those are my questions on wastewater. Thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Everybody else.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Kevin, for that very detailed presentation. It's good to see all that. I just have a question. Are the items that are on the CIP, and I'm looking at the current year, not next year, are those over and above what's done with the loans, or are they part of the project, or what?
No, they're above and beyond what's being done in those phased construction projects. So if you look at like the State Road pump station, that would be one that we're doing, getting the bypasses installed there, that kind of thing.
And the sludge pumps and
what I would call the collection system, so the things that give the ability to get it to the plant is what you're seeing in our other CIP.
My other question, and this may have been covered earlier with the way we talked about how the accounting was done, but originally the wastewater was supposed to have, almost $1.3 million in CIP this year, and it's only going to have, it's projected to have, it's only spent 435 so far. So is that an issue that things are being pushed off, or is it are they being done and we just need to see it because they're somewhere else, or what?
So the big ticket in that one, Commissioner, was the back truck that we did not get. So I don't know that you'll see a big downgrade in our performance, for lack of a better word, for this current CIP. The vac truck, we're able to still kind of keep that limping along, and it worked for us this year. And I think we'll see that, it's in this coming year's budget projection. But for the physical work of executing the rehab projects, like the Pump Street, State Road Pump Station, the sewer linings we did, the East Lake Drive extension, and the others. I think we did, we're going to be able to execute what we were authorized to execute. I'll put it that way.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett? You're muted.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for that information. It's very detailed, very informative. Just a curious question. The 3 holding tanks, kind of what is the lifespan of those, and will they be necessary in the future once the plant is fully upgraded?
I think they were probably constructed with the plant, 8 and 85 or whatever. So, their life expectancy was 30 years at the time. They've hung in there pretty well. They're at probably almost 40 now, but they're definitely showing their age. It is always good to have that overflow capacity. We will not need, probably, knock on wood, and pray for good weather. We probably would not see a need for 3, holding tanks, in the out years. Certainly, we use one almost full time now, especially over the winter time when we're trying to hold some when we can't land or fly. We would probably, sometimes we use a second. We would probably still want to have an operational one at a minimum as we get past 22, and actually, I'm sorry, past 24. But up until 24, we want to make sure we have at least 2, and we'll probably look toward fixing that third one as well.
And just curious also, our land application lease, is that current through when, do you know?
Currently, we have 1 more season under the existing lease. We did a 3-year extension, I guess 2 years ago. And so we'll be in a position of trying to negotiate an extension sometime before next fall, probably. He'll get serious about looking at an extension.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. If there's no more questions from the commissioners, I'd like to go to the members of the public. Carol Everhart.
No comment.
Walter Brittingham.
First of all, Kevin, I'd like to thank you for an extensive discussion. It's more than timely. It would have been timely beforehand. But when you get down to talking about the tanks, and the reason the tanks are rusted is because we haven't done maintenance on the tanks in years and years, and more than 2 administrations before this one, because we were saving money and can't do without the tanks. If we have an outfall failure, we got to have a place to hold some of it. But there's just no reason not to be working on the tanks. But one of the pictures that the commissioners ought to understand, I don't think you've probably been down there, done work to raise the grounds over top of the pipes that were on pilings. But it would be nice to have some understanding of how it works, because everything was built on top of a marsh and everything had to be supported by pilings, everything. But in any case, thanks for a nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Dan and Greer online. Rick Perry.
Thank you.
Joel Fraden.
Nothing to add.
Frank Cooper.
No comment, thank you.
Gary Glass. Did he drop off?
He's off.
Okay, very good. If there's no more questions, thank you very much, Kevin. We appreciate your time and effort in putting together that presentation as well as participating here today. With that, we'll move on to the next item of old business, and that is to consider motions to support the installation of 2 proposed state historical markers to be located on or near the boardwalk, one recognizing the Rehoboth Beach LGBTQ community and Poodle Beach, and a second one recognizing the Rehoboth Beach Patrol. If you recall, this is the second meeting. We introduced this at a previous meeting. We're talking about the blue metal signs, about, say, 3 foot by 3 foot, that are historical state markers offered by the Delaware State Archives and their historical marker program. At our last meeting, we went over historical marker criteria and eligibility. And if you recall, one of the notes we made is that pretty much anyone can apply for these state markers. However, they do have to fit their historical marker criteria and eligibility. One of the bits of eligibility makes mention that a marker application will not be approved if property owner and or city town does not approve of marker placement. So a necessary step in getting them approved is for the municipality, if, for instance, us, to give approval to the state to indeed go forward with the markers. As far as the placement of the markers, there would be a meeting sometime after they're approved with the state archives representatives because they have their own rules and regulations. Normally, if it's a historical marker on a highway, I believe their rule is it has to be parallel to the highway. I don't know what their rule would be for a boardwalk. So they've got their own criteria. Certainly the city would have a representative there because we would want to have a say-so on where they're placed. But also DNREC, Department of Natural Resources, I've already invited them to a siting meeting, if you will, because they have certain regulations also they have to abide by. If you recall, the VIA already has a blue historical state marker at the Rehoboth Beach Public Library. They have one at the Girard Park near the fishing bridge. They have one up at the roundabout making note about the lighthouse that they helped fund. And they've got we've got another one ready to go and approved by the state as well as approved by the city that touts the surf line that used to stretch from the beach out into the ocean to help people in their wet, heavy suits to get in and out of the ocean. And that one is to go at the end of Rehoboth Avenue, down somewhat on the opposite side where the existing state historical marker is there. These 2 applications are submitted and are embedded in the agenda along with the historical criteria so that we don't need to go over them. However, I would like to make note that the historical marker for the Beach Patrol was proposed and submitted by, I guess, citizen Kathy McGinnis, and the historical marker for the LGBTQ recognition in Poodle Beach was submitted by Mr. Frank Cooper, and perhaps he'll say a word when we go to the public. So are there any comments? I want to go to the public before we entertain any motions. Are there any comments by the commissioners? I will say, as far as the timing of this, the VIA, again, has approval for their marker at the end of Rehoboth Avenue, but they're put on hold by the state because of COVID restrictions. So the earliest that they might get permission to install it could possibly be September, and that could be the earliest possible time frame for the Beach Patrol and the one down at Poodle Beach, although timing is to be determined, if you will. If there's no questions for the commissioners, then I'm going to go to the members of the public and see if they support it. And also remember that as part of your support documents, besides the historical marker eligibility and the 2 applications, one by Frank Cooper, one by Kathy McGinnis, there's also a letter of support from the Camp Rehoboth Community Center supporting the one marker down at, with that, we'll go to the public. Carol Everhart. She dropped off. Walter Brittingham.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Anna Greer, Rick Perry.
Yes, thank you. I just want to add my voice of support for these historical markers. I think they're all very appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Joel Fraden.
No comment, thanks.
Thank you. Frank Cooper.
Yes, thank you all for entertaining the idea of the Poodle Beach Historic Marker. And as far as the timing goes, I had originally hoped that it would be available for presentation and on Gay Pride Month, which is in June. That doesn't look like it's going to happen. Katie Hall, the woman who works for the Historical Association in the state of Delaware, has resigned. So they are looking for a replacement. So this is on hold for an undetermined amount of time. So I'm shooting for not this coming June, but June a year from now for the actual presentation. I think would be appropriate. And thank you again for entertaining this. And I'm very proud of Rehoboth Beach, our city, for doing this. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Frank. We'll go to the last member of the public, is Gary Glass. He's still not on. With that, we'll go back to the commissioners. Commissioner Jay Legree.
Thank you. Mayor, you and Frank have been leading the charge on this. Have you decided a possible place to put the marker at the end of Prospect Street somewhere? Does the state ever allow anything put on the dune east of the boardwalk?
As I mentioned earlier, placements to be determined. It's going to have to be a meeting between DNREC city representatives, the archives representatives, and of course, Kathy McGinnis could be there and Frank could be there representing the applicants. You know, there is a construction line that DNREC doesn't allow certain things to happen. I would doubt that it could be placed in the dune whatsoever. That would violate DNREC's rules. We don't even do that. If you look at our rule signs that are on the boardwalk, they are not attached into the dune at all. They're not dug straight down. They have angled mounts that actually mount to the boardwalk. So I don't know. I have no clue where they would go. I think we have to be flexible, and that's why I want to have a big group, that group on site with DNREC so that we can determine the placement in one session at each location. Again, I don't know whether they would allow them on the east side of the boardwalk, on the west side of the boardwalk, so that's up in the air. Any further questions, Commissioner Legree?
Thank you, Mayor. I've been trying to figure out where we could put it, and the Prospect Street, the end of the street has to be kept open for machinery to come on and off, and I just don't know. I can't figure out where we'll put it. Put it in front of the house.
Right. Commissioner Stranowski, you're muted.
I want to thank Ms. McGinnis and Mr. Cooper for their efforts and commend them and happy to support this in our inclusive city. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's not forget who the first one was to mention the historical marker down at Poodle Beach. Oh, that's right. That was me. So thank you. But Frank did the follow through. So thank you very much, Frank. If there's no more comment from the public and from the commissioners or questions, I'll entertain a motion to support the installation of the two proposed state historical markers as noted.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Stranowski and a second by Commissioner Byrd to support the installation of the two proposed state historical markers to be located on or near the boardwalk, one recognizing the Rehoboth Beach LGBTQ community and Poodle Beach, and the second one recognizing the Rehoboth Beach Patrol. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'd just like to add, as far as the wording goes, I did ask if the city would have a say-so or some kind of approval process for the wording. They indicated, yes, that we would be made aware of the wording and everything. The wording is usually finalized by the archives themselves with local input sometimes. With that, we have a motion and a second on the floor to support the installation of these two. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. And the motion's carried unanimous. Very good. So I will be getting a hold of their new archives rep and letting them know that the city supports the installation of these two markers. Thank you very much. Thank you, Frank, again. And Kathy, I don't think you're listening, but thank you for this. The next bit of business is consider sale of real property owned by the
Mayor,
city.
can I interrupt before we move
Yes,
this
sir.
along? Thank you. I didn't want to bring this up before we voted on the historical markers because I think that was important. But I do want to bring attention to the letter that's on the Camp Rehoboth Community Center letterhead. I think it's a very significant letter in the sense that it was signed by not only Camp Rehoboth, but also by the Southern Delaware Alliance for Racial Justice and for West Side Beginnings. And there's a paragraph in the center of that letter that discusses the historic significance of West Rehoboth. And it ends with a sentence, with little of what was originally West Rehoboth remains today. We believe that this is an important story worthy of a historical marker. I think it would behoove us as the city of Rehoboth Beach to partner with perhaps these organizations, perhaps others in West Rehoboth, to think about how do we celebrate and honor the contributions that West Rehoboth has had with the city of Rehoboth Beach. And that's what that paragraph is alluding to. I think it is significant and that we shouldn't just move on without bringing this up. And beyond that, I don't have any concrete thoughts at this moment other than I would be happy to explore this and then come back to the commissioners with something at some future time.
That's fine. Thank you, Commissioner, for acknowledging it. I merely skipped over it because it was not on the agenda and not relevant to this agenda. However, it's a very good topic, I think, to pursue. So if you would do that, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
If there's no further comment, then I want to go to the next item of business, which is consider sale of real property owned by the city located at 84 Kent Street. If you recall, the charter, even though there was a consensus to sell 84 Kent by this commission and the previous commission before I became mayor, there needs to be a formal process as outlined in the charter to conduct a public hearing and then consider the question. In other words, then vote. Glenn, do you want to
I'll just
read at least the resolution part of it?
Sure, Mayor. So I'll mention the title of the resolution, which has already been adopted by the commissioners for purposes of going to a public hearing. The resolution by the commissioners of the city of Rehoboth Beach proposing that a public hearing be held on the subject of the potential sale of city-owned land located at 84 Kent Street, tax parcel number 334-13, .20-144.00. Again, this goes to section 41 of the city charter, which does require that before the city sells any real property, it must first conduct a public hearing. You have scheduled and set this day for the public hearing, so now it's the appropriate time to conduct it.
Very good, thank you. All right, so we have the opportunity to discuss it first, or we can go to public hearing first. Is there a preference? Commissioner Sernowski?
I had a comment, but my preference would be to go to public comment first.
All right, let's do that. We'll get back to you, Commissioner. So I'd like to open the public hearing for this as is mandated in the charter. The public hearing meaning we'll hear from citizens from Rehoboth Beach on their preference to allow the commissioners to sell or retain the property known as 84 Kent Avenue. Well, how do we do this?
We've only got a number of individuals sign up. I would just go through the list and see.
Okay. I'm getting ready to look out in the audience and call on people, for goodness sake. Well, we'll go through our registered speaker list. Carol Everhart?
No longer.
She's not on call. Walter Brittingham?
Thank you. I go back to the Scout House when it was a building that was removed because we called it the Scout House. And there were so many young boys from Rehoboth, Mr. Enoch Gale, a river pilot, I can't think of his name right now, in the acres. We had so many adults that helped make it possible, that so many young men got steered in the right direction at a time when Rehoboth had so few people. And it made a difference, and city, I think it gave it to the Kiwanis Club for $1 a year or something like that. And I think it has well served the purpose, and unless something better comes along, I would concur that probably now is the time to sell it and get the best value. I know somebody will probably have some other ideas, but if they've got other ideas, they should bring them forth now. But I concur with what the city is trying to do. And I also remember somebody said that this money ought to be earmarked or cut down debt. It shouldn't be left out there, that it could be spent indiscriminately for anybody. I think the commission know where it's going to be spent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. Rick Perry?
No comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Joel Fraden?
Hi, I know I've spoken on this before. I live at 107 5th Street with my dear wife. The neighbor on the other side of the property in question are Brenda and Rick's Gary. And we feel the same way about it. We both strongly support the city selling this property to a private party to maintain the tenor of the block we have and benefit the city in dealing with its budget shortfall. So we're very much in favor of a sale.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Fraden. Frank Cooper?
Yes, actually, I had hoped that the city might develop an affordable housing unit, build a house that looks appropriate for the neighborhood, and provide a rental properties for lifeguards and such if they do not sell the property. That's all.
Thank you, Frank. Gary's still off? All right. With that, I close the public hearing portion of this meeting, and we'll go for discussion among the commissioners. Commissioner Stronowski, please.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I previously discussed this in, I believe it was a budget meeting. I very much would like to restrict the use of the funds from the sale of this property to service debt or to be earmarked specifically for infrastructure projects. So I guess my question to Glenn is now an appropriate time to solidify that, or should it be a budget related item? Just looking for some guidance on that.
I think that that's most appropriately considered as part of the budget, and perhaps it might be even more appropriate to wait until there's an offer that the city's actually considering accepting, and then make that determination. I think right now it's just a threshold level question of should the property be sold or not.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you, Bill.
That's all. Thank you, Glenn. I'm in support of selling it. I think there's no better time. Happy to move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Legree?
I agree with Ed. I feel the same way. And I think Bert could put that money where it would be needed or where we could have it for reserve. And the best way to do that is to cut down the debt. But yes, let's sell it. And we can talk about the pros and cons of keeping the property and building housing for employees, but that never really works well. It's always best if you're gonna do something for employees, do it with something in their check, give them a housing allowance or something like that, rather than try to build and maintain rental housing. I think it should be sold to an individual who desires to build a house in that residential area. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, I very much support the sale of 84 Kent. I'm just curious to know, and as going forward with the sale, if there are any leases or contracts that are existing with the house that there's been mention of the Scouts and the Kiwanis and what have you, if there's any existing contracts that are still on the books that need to be resolved prior to the sale. And also, will the sale be handled through a real estate agent, or are we acting as our own agent, if you will, as the city?
Sharon?
Yes, so the sale will be handled by the city. We'll put out a press release and information on the website. We'll post the property, which actually it's already been done. And we will not need to go through a realtor. That was conferred with the city solicitor, and it'll be an open bidding process for the highest bidder at this point.
And that will be conducted by the bidding process be set for a day, and that will be conducted by the city?
Correct.
Okay.
And I'll just note, Commissioner, that we did have a lease agreement with Kiwanis that has been terminated.
Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay?
Yes, I also think this is the optimal time to sell that property. And Sharon may have just answered the question I had. I had a question about timing. I understand it's going to be out for bid and all that, but is there a deadline for when the bids would come in, be opened and all that? Do we have a timeline for that?
Once the commissioners complete this process and vote, we'll be able to advertise again and come up with a timeline. I would say at least 3 to 4 weeks to get bids in and to have people tour the property. We've been doing that. We have done a couple of showings, if you will, in our process, but we'll continue that and open the bids. I'd say, within advertised open bids within a 4 to 6 week period.
Okay, so around April, 1st of April timeframe. Okay. And I said it as recently as this morning that I wanted to look at the proceeds that aren't being used for debt and earmark those. And I still feel that way. And obviously I think I agree with Glenn that the best time to do that is once we have a sale, because it could be more than what we have budgeted. So thank you.
Thank you. So the question in front of us is, do we want to sell the real property at all? So I would entertain a motion at this point authorizing the city manager to sell real property owned by the city located at 84 Kent Street as noted.
I would make a motion to authorize the city manager to sell the property at 84 Kent Street.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Gay and a second by Commissioner Srnowski to authorize the city manager to sell real property located at 84 Kent Street and owned currently by the city. With that, I'll just do a broad call. All those in favor of the selling signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, the next bit of business is to consider authorizing the mayor to seek state sponsorship of amendments to the charter, section 17, city manager, and section 21, police force, to clarify that the city manager may designate supervisory authority over city employees and city department, including the beach patrol captain and the beach patrol, and other amendments within those sections. Glenn, do you want to offer anything? The support document with the amended changes is embedded in the agenda.
That's right, Mayor. The support document is there. Again, it's titled an act to amend the charter of the city of Rehoboth Beach relating to the city manager's delegation of supervisory authority over city employees, including beach patrol employees. So this this charter amendment would predominantly do that, but if you recall, Commissioner Gossett took some time and made sure some other sections of this charter section were up to date. Commissioner Gossett, do you feel the need to highlight any of those?
I think we've discussed it in past meetings. It primarily just updates the standards really to bring it into, if you will, today's language. We also have updated the aspect of the American Red Cross certification that really doesn't exist any longer. So we have another ability for certification of the lifeguards, a couple grammatical corrections, and in consultation with the chief of police, updating the abilities of the beach patrol and actually removing the language that says that they could be vested with all the powers and authorities of the members of the police force of the city, which is not possible today. So we've updated and removed that language, and that primarily is the function of it. I think it also does move the aspect of the beach patrol is and the consideration of public safety is an issue of the job, and that is the job of the police force. And I think that public safety is also the job of the beach patrol. And it just in today's society makes more sense to look at this all from the aspect of a public safety perspective.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any discussion among the commissioners? If not, I'm going to go to the public before we entertain a motion. Carol Everhart, she's still dropped off. Walter Brittingham.
No comment, thank you.
Thank you. Rick Perry.
No comment, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Joel Fraden. He dropped off. Frank Cooper. Very good. Thank you. We'll close the public comment section. With that, commissioners, I would entertain a motion to authorize the mayor to seek state sponsorship of the amendments to the city charter as noted.
I move approval of the charter amendment in front of us.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dick Byrne, and who seconded?
I did.
And Commissioner Gossett, thank you, with a second by Commissioner Gossett to authorize the mayor to seek state sponsorship of amendments to the charter as noted. With that, I'll do a call vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Is there any nays? Nope. That motion is approved unanimously then. Thank you. Got some extraneous noise here.
No,
Mayor?
Commissioner
yeah.
voted no. Commissioner Legree voted no.
I voted no, and I'm not even.
I'm sorry.
I'm not even muted this time.
Well, let me start over, and I'm sorry, and do a roll call vote. I didn't see any hand there. Commissioner Gay, let's do a roll call vote.
Aye.
No, I said Commissioner Gay, aye. Commissioner Legree?
Nay.
Okay.
And I believe this rises to a compelling reason for amendment.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Byrne?
Aye.
Commissioner Paluzzi?
Aye.
Commissioner Gossett?
Aye.
Commissioner Chernowski?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. It carries 6-1. Thank you very much. Sorry to miss you, Commissioner Legree. With that, we'll go to the next item of business, which is new business, to discuss a proposed amendment to the City of Rehoboth Beach Municipal Code, creating Chapter 195 titled Parks and Recreation, regarding general rules and regulations and including rules and regulations specific to the Grove Park Canal Dock. This was authored, you'll see in the support document, by Liz Lingo, our arborist, and also Evan Miller. It's dated February 3rd. If you recall, this was introduced at our last workshop meeting, but we only focused on the portions relative to the Grove Park Canal Dock. We had not advertised it to talk about the entirety of it. This time we're able to talk about the entirety of the proposal here. So it's really a first time in front of us as a totally new document. Liz and Evan, do you want to give any preface, introductory statement as to why you chose to do this rather than just canal dock policy separate from code or something?
Mayor, I'll recuse from this discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Coluzzi.
Sure, I can give a little background and then Evan can jump in if he needs to as well. About a year ago, we had a consultant help us out with a plan for some of the parks, and actually the city manager mentioned it earlier today in the budget meeting. And one of his recommendations was to have this baseline Parks and Recreation rules and regulations. Without it, it's difficult for the police to enforce things like hours. I mean, he at the time also said that in his 30 years of running one of the park systems in upstate Delaware, they never had to actually do major enforcement or take anybody to court, but this was their baseline to keep a handle on everything. So when the opportunity came up, or really the necessity came up to work on the canal dock rules, we grabbed the opportunity to make it comprehensive so that the hours and the rules were consistent across all our different parks, and then specifying out certain things that only affect maybe the canal dock or the playgrounds, like fish cleaning. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Evan.
No, I don't have anything to add, just that this is sort of our first go at the new chapter to sort of consolidate some of those rules and regulations for the parks, but also incorporate some items that are specific to the Grove Park Canal Dock that was previously discussed.
Thank you. I put this on a regular meeting, normally would be on an agenda for a workshop, only to try to accelerate the review, not meaning we need to rush to get this done, but I think by putting it on each agenda, we can have time to review it and be able to perhaps vote on it prior to summertime if we choose to do that. I wanted to ask Evan and Liz, has Glenn or the chief, number one, provided any input to this, and have they done any review?
Chief reviewed it and was okay with everything.
And I believe Glenn has a comment or two as well.
Yeah, I did check in with Evan and Liz yesterday on the enforcement section. I'd like to change it a little bit, not the standards that are there, but just the language that we use to be a little more consistent with some of the other sections of the code. So it would still be a civil offense with a civil assessment of $100, with each day that the offense continues being a separate offense. My only other comment is that the formatting of our code, instead of providing for numbers like this is done in 195-2, we try to make those letters A, B, C, 1, 2, 3.
And
yeah.
The only reason I did numbers was because we had over 26 numbers, so I didn't know whether then you go AA, AB, so.
We'll leave it numbers, I think.
Okay.
That's all I had there.
So you'll do extra scrutiny and on formatting and content, okay. I've got comments, but we've got commissioner comments here, Commissioner Byrne, and then Gay, Legree, Srnowski, and Gossett, and Mills.
I've got two questions. One is, I I guess, to the solicitor, that this applies to all city parks. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then, listen, Evan, thanks for your work on this. Number 23, it looks like line 88 on my document. No person 16 years of age or over may fish in Lake Girard or from the Grove Park Canal dock without first having obtained a no-cost license from the city. Is there a reason that Silver Lake is not mentioned? Fishing in Silver Lake?
Well, existing, we have 155-5, where it specifies Lake Girard, so for the license. So we added the canal dock to it, but we did not add Silver Lake to it.
Okay, is there a reason Silver Lake?
I can't say that was a conscientious decision. I don't
Sure.
think since the canal dock was new, we thought about adding it.
Okay, so I guess the question then is, should Silver Lake be added?
Yeah, I believe so, because we do have a public area a couple of public areas along Silver Lake, so.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for your work on this.
Thank you, Dick. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, I actually have a number of things. Some of them are minor and some of them are sort of broader questions. First of all, sort of tying on to what Commissioner Byrne just asked, if it was all parks. Park being the defined term here is very broad. And so I wondered if it would be useful to append to this or to have somewhere in this code a list of all the parks in the city. I say that because a few months ago, I don't remember exactly what the reason was, but I had seen a list sometime recently of all the parks, and I was frankly a little surprised how many there were. I mean, there's some pocket parks that that I think people tend to forget about. So if these rules are going to apply to all those parks, I think it'd be nice to have a list of them somewhere. And I'm assuming it does apply to all of them, right?
Yes.
Yes, and I think we were going off of our zoning, where it's zoned as open space.
Okay.
But I don't see any reason why they couldn't be specifically named and listed.
Well, if it's a case of it's everything that's the OS in our code, then that should be alluded to in here, perhaps, either in place of or in addition to having. I think of the list as just being a helpful bit of information for people who may not know. I think for code purposes, though, that's a good point that we probably do want to make reference to the open space part of our zoning code. And there are a couple of questions I have that are sort of relate to where it appears throughout. Like in some places, park is a small p, in some places it is park land. But since park is a defined term, I think it ought to be park with a capital P wherever that appears in the code, and not the word parkland, just as just kind of a stylistic thing. But on rule number 1 online, I guess it would be 16. About no person shall cut, break, otherwise destroy, and it says nor foul any stream, pond, or water feature. I think we ought to add the word lake, nor foul any lake, stream, pond, or water feature. Lake wasn't called out specifically. And then on line 21 brings up the first of my general questions about written permission. There are a number of things in here that talk about written permission, and there's one, the fishing, talks about having a no-cost license. And I guess I wonder what that entails. Is it a permit? Is it just a letter? Is there would there be any kind of formal application process? And the answer to that may be different depending on the type of permission being granted, but it's not addressed anywhere. It's just written permission everywhere. So I don't necessarily want to do that now, but I'm just asking the question, should the areas where it says written permission, should we think about how that would be granted?
Well, let me just interject, because that was one of my questions too. It's so repetitive. Could there not be omitted and yet at one point put in there exceptions, that allowing the city manager to grant exceptions to anything rather than specific them? So that's certainly a possibility. Continue, Susan.
Okay, on line 25, the use of amplified music. It reminded me that, and I know elsewhere in here is on line 66, it says no person may utilize the park for purposes of teaching without permission. So these two things may be related, but it sort of reminds me of when the Country Club Estates Association has their annual picnic and meeting there, and we're amplified because we're presenting. We're not teaching, but we're doing a presentation. And so I'm wondering if, and we do get permission to do that every year, but I'm wondering if it should, rather than just saying amplified music, amplified music or presentations or music or speech, or anyway, the emphasis being on amplification, not on music. So let's see. So then on line 37, parking in parking lots is limited to users of the park. Well, not for Grove Park, as of what we talked about this morning, including meters there. It's next to Grove Park. I don't know if it's considered the Grove Park lot, but that lot is not limited to users of the park. So how do we deal with that?
I say we take a look at it and maybe compile all that if individually if there's a lot of questions.
Okay, because I also wondered, are there parking? There's no like parking lot at Stokely. There's no real parking lot at Lake Gerard. So I guess I just wonder, there must be some. Deauville. Well, no, that's not a park. So I don't know. I don't know where there are any parks that might meet that definition. Actually, I mean, any parking lots related to parks.
Commissioner, I apologize. What line are you on?
I'm on line 37. Parking in
37.
parking lots is limited to users of the park. But
Commissioner Gay, I think it's referring to two specific places. Over at Lake Gerard, there are parking spots specific to the children's fishing pier, and I have noted problems where people park there and go to the beach, or park there and with construction vehicles doing work across the street. And then also there are several spaces at Grove Park that are designated for the park, really. So I think it was meant to keep those for the park, because I've also seen several people park there and then walk to businesses.
Right.
And then people come to try and use the playground or, walk around the park and have nowhere to park.
Okay. So it's really it's designated parking spaces, not parking lots per se.
Yeah, so maybe it would be designated parking spaces or something like that.
Okay. And let's see, the same, going to line 74, number 19, park hours are sunrise to sunset when, except in areas designated for extended use activities. Well, again, my understanding is that the parking lot at Grove Park isn't used in the evenings now, or it can't be, or there's posted signage about that. And we're changing that, but that doesn't affect the park. It just affects the parking lot. So I don't know whether there's anything about this that has to do with that lot or not, but raise the question.
No, I don't think the parking lot we wouldn't consider the hours for the parking lot the same as the park hours.
Okay. And then I had the same question that Commissioner Byrne had about adding Silver Lake to item number 23. On item 26, where you have A, B, and C, and A is the Grove Park Canal Dock, and B says playgrounds and tot lots, and C says tennis and pickleball courts. Should we add the designation city playgrounds and tot lots, city tennis and pickleball courts? Because we don't have any control over the elementary school playground, for instance, right?
But we're also, this whole thing is about the city parks. So it only applies to city parks, so it might be kind of redundant to then say
area parkland,
city playground.
Okay.
Unless we think there's a legal reason for that.
I'm just asking the question in terms of, and that was all I had specifically, but an added question is, would there be sign, well, two things. First of all, there should be a provision in here that people must comply with all posted rules. Because for instance, even though there are a lot of rules in this ordinance, at the Silver Lake Bridge, there's special signage about the wildlife. And I guess at Lake Gerard, there's special signage about wildlife too. And those are rules about not feeding and all that. So I feel like we ought to have a rule in here that you have to comply with all rules. And then my second part of that is, are we going to create a sign that has the key elements of this, the key rules and regulations, so that people will know what they are?
Yeah, so that was one of the other major reasons we wanted to start on this. When we're working on the canal dock signage, it's imperative that we have the rules posted, not only approved and codified, but posted so that people know what they are and that the police have the ability to enforce them. So yes, that is part of the plan.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Legree?
Yeah, I don't see in here anywhere that talks about ADA compliance. There are a lot of people who ride scooters and motorized chairs who are handicapped, and they need to be able to go wherever they can go, I think. So I'd like to see something in there that this does not, I don't know how you do it. Glenn would know, but we should tell ADA, we should tell handicapped people that they can come and go in the parks as much as they can. And
Jay, can you point to any points in here that discriminate against those in wheelchair, or?
No, it just says, let me read this to you. No person shall ride in or drive a motorized vehicle on any parkland without written permission of the city manager. So shall we have them get a written permission by the city manager before they unload their wheelchairs and scooters?
What line are you at?
Line 29. No, wait a minute. I'm in line 33. I'm sure I'm missing it, but I just can't find it.
Well, motorized vehicles defined as automobiles, gas and electric, scooters, mopeds, and motorcycles.
Yep, that's it.
So it does not define electric wheelchairs.
We could,
Well, we could add a part in the definition that just says does not apply to electric wheelchairs.
And most of them call them scooters, but yeah, something in there that says handicapped people can go where they can go.
Well, we'll task Glenn to work with Evan and Liz on that.
Yeah. And as far as, I don't think anybody has more fisher people in front of their house than I have. Are we solving a problem that doesn't exist with the license? What does the state say about fishing in the state of Delaware?
So we already have the license required for Lake Gerard in the code. We could do away with it entirely if we don't think it's necessary, because I truthfully have no idea why it was ever put in the code. I couldn't even make up a reason for it for you.
Why don't you and Glenn put your heads together and make a decision, and I'll vote for it?
Well, I'd say that's really up to the commissioners. If we don't think it's necessary to have a fishing license, I can tell you from building and licensing point of view, we would definitely not rather have to process that with no financial income.
I hear that.
How many licenses have we issued to those over 16 in the last 5 years?
Like maybe 5. About 2 years ago, we couldn't figure out how to do it. We had all forgotten it existed. So
which tells me no, the majority are not getting them. So what's the point? So
unless we feel it's necessary to start enforcing that.
Is a state license required?
Yeah.
To fish in the city.
think
I'm
so.
not sure if it's required to fish in the city limits of Rehoboth.
Well, that would be important to understand. I think Commissioner Leguri asked that as part of his comment. And if that's the case, then we definitely would not want to have a city license if there's already a state requirement.
Okay, so let's do some research on that. Thank you for bringing that forward. Jay, go ahead, finish up.
And just ask Chief Banks what his thoughts are on enforcing the no fishing rule. I would just, as I say, I've seen hundreds of people fishing and they're all doing a great job. They don't leave trash too much. And it's just a good group and I wouldn't want to see them harassed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Srnowski?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple quick things. We really don't reference here at all anything from the special events and the related permits with it, which would cover a lot of the instances where it would otherwise require the special permission from the city manager. So I don't know if it makes sense to do an overbranching umbrella here that says, unless otherwise allowed or permitted by a special event. We now have an extensive process and application for it. The second thing I have is on number 2, the sale, consumption, or possession of alcoholic beverages. We may also want to add, beside the city manager, it would also need approval or written permission from the ABCC. I think that's probably important to specify. And when it comes down to the use of the sorry, let me back up. 26, where we list the different areas, and I guess if we're going to list parks out in general, my question is whether the bandstand and the surrounding area is considered a park or not, the way that it's defined. And then when we get down to section 195-3 with the Grove Park, I think we need to set a fee schedule in place specifically for the use of the dock. And I'm very anxious to do that, so we can go ahead and potentially have a water taxi for this upcoming summer season. So that's the last thing I have on that. And then overall, I've got a little bit of a concern that as broadly as park is defined, in my mind, it means every single spot where there's a city easement. And we could be setting ourselves up for, there's a few instances. I'll just think of one example. There's a city easement in between 2 houses. Now putting in place no slip and slides, other types of activities, anytime the neighboring properties are out there using what they probably consider as an extended part of their front yard, we're going to have neighbors calling the cops for kids playing on slip and slides next to their house. So I think it's just something to consider. It could end up happening. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, thank you very much, and great work on this, Evan and Liz. I know it's not easy designing these things and putting them together. And just to reflect my anal retentiveness under definitions, could we add those? Could we put those in alphabetical order for the aspect of watercraft, motorized, and park? And then on the definition of park itself, I think Commissioner Gay mentioned it earlier, but I think the use of areas zoned as O1 or open space, which is tied back to our approved zoning map. It defines 17 parks as open space, and it also defines about 5 islands on Robath Avenue, Scarborough Avenue, etc. So if somehow you can massage that language in there to reflect open spaces as opposed to specifically parks. And I'm also concerned about the use of having, because the area of land or passive or active enjoyment of the public having facilities. Does that having facilities, I don't know how we define that. I know Central Park is really a passive park. Are there any facilities there? I mean, is a bench a facility? Is a sign a facility? So I don't, again, I don't want to be too restrictive, but I think to be as clear as possible as we can of having facilities, just what we mean by that. You know, with simple insertion of the words which may have facilities could correct that, or just add a broader definition to that. But I really think it could tied back to zoning of O1 to be looked at as it relates to the approved zoning map. Next point I have on line 20 there about the consumption of alcohol. I agree that just to verify that the city manager has the ability to approve the sale of alcoholic beverages as related to ABCC. I think when that original language was written into our ordinances, the ABCC guidelines were a little bit less stringent than they are today with regards to, if you will, drunk drivers and responsibilities and what have you. So I think if I would ask the solicitor just to kind of investigate that a little bit more, because there could be exposure there that we're not aware of with the updated alcohol laws in the state. Another just point that we refer in here to Grove Park, but nowhere on our zoning map or anywhere else in the ordinances do we refer to is Grove Park defined. It's actually Shaw Park. So either we need to create Grove Park and define it, or refer everything back to Shaw Park. That's how it's defined on the official zoning map. So just a point of clarification, and could run into some problems down the line. Lines 74, 75, talking about park hours. I know back in 2011, the mayor was in revising use of the boardwalks. We determined that the terms sunrise and sunset were a little bit ambiguous, and the phrases daybreak and nightfall were utilized in the code. I don't know whether that's still applicable or not, but either way, I think we should have consistency in the definitions or how we're describing it, and that's in 198.37, use of pavilions on the boardwalk under peace and good order. So again, one way or the other, but I think we should be consistent. Just again, throughout a notice on line 88 here, number 23, again, Grove Park, Shaw Park, we need to make a decision on that. Wherever globally, we comment on Grove Park. And I think also when down in 195.3, again, addressing the actual hours of the operation of the dock, whether again be sunrise or sunset or daybreak or nightfall or what have you, but they need to be outlined in here. Going along with Commissioner Chernowski's comments, we don't really address any commercial use of the dock here about cost involved, insurance provided, number of operators, licensing by the state, licensing by any public transportation authorities nationwide or what have you. So I think to address those issues, we need to address those issues to see that we're covering ourselves and what have you. I think generally that covers it for my initial comments. Just to go back to the open space, I think we do have there. It's only identified on the zoning map as listing them out, that list of 17 that Commissioner Gay had referred to. So, and one other thing I don't think it's addressed in here, but we do address it in other parts of the code, and that's sleeping in the parks. I don't see any notion or any mention about you can or can't sleep in the parks or what have you. And again, in our code of peace and good order in 198, we do address sleeping on the boardwalk. So again, a consideration whether that needs to be a part of this legislation or not, but to be considered for future, to think if you want to put that in there or not. Is it covered in the operational hours, or do we need to specifically call out sleeping in the park? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I was looking here at the zoning map, and the only problem with, incorporating the OS district specifically is that also includes a significant portion of the beach. So I think it does have to be, and I wasn't sure whether you were going to include some of these islands that are here as open spaces. But so not every bit of open space is a park, I guess.
Well, and I think that if we were to either talk about open spaces and define it in the chapter, perhaps, and just selecting from what we define as open space or parkland, that's outlined on the zoning map might be the answer there.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you all. I'm only going to offer a few comments, and that is that I think overall I'm glad you all worked on it. I think it's a great start. I would want to make sure that the farmers market is given consideration here. By example, lines 36, 37, there should be no parking in the parks. But of course, we know the farmers market does allow it. So unless this is time to make a statement and say no more vehicles in the parks, then we need to give an exception. So I'd like that checked out. Also, line 60, 61 mentions no person shall operate a drone. My preference would be to start our own chapter or have a section in there on drones because I think they ought to be prohibited without being authorized by or licensed by realtors or those that are taking aerial photographs. I know when I was chair of the Boardwalk Committee, we talked about drones and trying to suggesting that at one point we were going to make a recommendation to do a chapter that bans drones from hovering over people, hovering over the dune crossings, hovering over the beach area. So rather than in here as a separate item, again, I would prefer that we look at that independently. Some of the other things for me, I have a lot of other things, and I'm just going to do a red line version and send it to them because there's a lot of them are small, but I'd like them to look at them. I would suggest that you all do the same. But if you're going to do it next week. So put yourself a deadline to give them any further comment by the end of next week, 1 week away. Evan and Liz or Glenn, do you think you can have something, another version or update formatted for us for the March workshop meeting?
Yeah, right.
Okay,
I think so.
that'd be all right? Okay, so we can take another look at it, because I know it does need to be formatted better. And again, I'll reiterate my concern with the formatting of all these exceptions without written permission of the city manager. Is there not some other way to handle that, whether they're in their own section or whatever? Any other comments by the commissioners before I go to the public? If not, we'll go to the public. Walter Brittingham?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Rick Perry?
Yes, thank you. A couple of things. One, I think your last suggestion about a separate section that begins perhaps without the permission from the city manager, no person shall, and then have those as one separate section would be a good idea. I also would just suggest that perhaps look at the definition of watercraft. Vessel typically is can be any number of things other than what I think is intended here, and perhaps it should read a boat or any other vessel designed for transport of persons in water. Just a thought. And
okay.
And with respect to, I think beginning at line 66, the park, I think there should be an exception for, individual teaching, which seems to be, prohibited here. I mean, if someone has a tutor for their child during the summer who's getting paid for tutoring, and they go and sit down at a picnic table in the park. They're getting paid for that service. I don't think should be exposed to any kind of fine. The other thing in Grove Park in particular, there are some exercise bars and things of that nature. Someone there who they may be compensating, and I don't think the intent is to cover those types of situations. I think it's more group teaching that ought to be prohibited. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Appreciate it, Rick. Joel Fraden, you dropped off. Frank Cooper.
Yes, I wanted to comment on, I liked Susan Gay's idea of defining what areas these are specifically, because there are areas, when you add Silver Lake, then you're talking about, a handful of areas that the city owns that are adjacent to what is largely a private lake. And so I think the city should decide whether they are in fact parks or not. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. Any other comment by the commissioners? If not, we'll close that and go to the next bit of new business. Consider appointment of Francis Markert Jr. as a member and chair of the Parks and Shade Tree Commission. If you recall, I mentioned his name at the last meeting. I'm nominating him for appointment to fill a vacant membership position as well as chair. I would like to share with you that doing some of my research, I found that the Chapter 253-6, operation of the Parks and Shade Tree Commission, the commission shall choose its own officers. In my research, I had Ann look it up, and we found that we didn't ever find any time that the Parks and Shade Tree Commission, since being formed, has ever elected officers. What has happened is every time a member has been appointed or nominated by the mayor, it has also been accompanied by the chair position. Because there is no co-chair in the Parks and Shade Tree Commission now, they've never voted for it. Certainly, we've got to keep the business going. So I'm making a nomination for Francis Markert, nicknamed Bunky Markert, for the position of fill a vacancy in the membership as well as chair, with the understanding that if the Parks and Shade Tree Commission convenes and they choose to vote for a new chair, then they have that privilege to do that. But we need to keep it moving forward. I picked Bunky Markert because he has served the town for over 20 years. He was on the Architectural Review Board Task Force when it was formed and served out throughout that membership. He is a current member of the Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee, and he was also a past member of the Planning Commission. So I think he'll do a good job. He's a resident of the town. He fits the criteria. I believe he will do a good job as both a member and as a chair if the commission allows him to continue to be a chair. With that, I guess somebody has to make a motion to, do I make the motion? Or?
No, you make the appointment, which you've already done. Now it's the commissioner's duty now to confirm your appointment. So
all right.
Confirm the mayor's appointment.
So hopefully somebody will make an appointment or make a motion to approve Francis Markert Jr. as a member and chair of the Parks and Shade Tree Commission.
I will make a motion to appoint Francis Markert Jr. as a member and chair of the Parks and Shade Tree Commission. Just as a side note, I worked with Bunky when we both served on the Planning Commission. He is the secretary position, is a very detailed-oriented individual and is very familiar with the code, being a member of the Planning Commission. So I think this is an excellent choice. Thank you.
Thank you.
That motion.
I'll second. Oh, dear. Okay, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jay, what did you say?
I said I would second that motion.
Okay, he beat you to it, so we have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Gossett and a second on the floor from Commissioner Jay Legree to approve the appointment of Francis Margaret Jr. as a member of the Parks and Shade Tree Committee, as well as being chair. Is there further discussion? Does anybody want a roll call vote? If not, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of appointing Francis Martin Jr. as member and chair of the Parks and Shade Tree Commission signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. And his appointment is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to, I forgot. Members of the public, do you want to speak up after the fact? My apologies. Walter?
No problems. Good job.
Thank you. Mr. Perry?
No comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Frank?
Excellent choice, Mayor Mills.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I apologize to you three for missing you. With that, we'll go to commissioner announcements and comments. Anybody? Commissioner Legree, yes, sir.
I would like to ask Kevin to ask Public Works Director Williams to brief us soon on the progress of the lake management and the stormwater management ordinance. We really need to get a stormwater fund going with enterprise fund, and I'm ready to get on it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
On a much lighter note, I'd like to congratulate Mayor Mills' household on adding a new member very recently. They've rescued a beautiful dog. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. BVSBCA certainly got some mileage out of the mayor adopting a new dog from them. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to review future meeting dates and meeting content. Our next meeting's February 23rd at 3 o'clock. That's a special meeting solely on the topic of tree code and primarily how to approach and organize a review of the code and including an evaluation of the proposed new chapter trees and maintenance as proposed by the Law Oversight Committee. That's on the 23rd, Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Monday, March 8th, we have a 9 o'clock workshop meeting and a 1:30 budget meeting. And then Friday, March 19th, I'll remind you, is the rescheduled date for the 3 hearings. Gross floor area number 1, gross floor area number 2, underground parking, and also wireless amendments. With that, are there any additional comments by anybody? If not, I want to thank all the watchers and participants and commissioners and staff that are here. And thank you, and we'll adjourn at 4:28 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.